Hello, everybody. Welcome to this town hall meeting. Thank you for joining us and for spending some time with us today. Thank you also to the advancement team for organizing this town hall and for inviting me to speak. My name is Gian Michele, and I'm the college psychologist of UWC Dilijan. Some information about this session. I will first introduce the topic and talk about a specific challenge that teenagers may face when living in an international learning community. Then we will listen to two students who are also peer listeners here in the school, and they are Babette van der Lek from the Netherlands and Georgis Vanidze from Georgia. Thank you very much for being with us. Let me remind you that the peer listeners are a group of students who are selected on the basis of their motivation to provide support to other students, and they receive training and supervision to give help to their peers. But they will tell something more about this later. Then after that, Babette and Georgi speak. I will share some further comments, and then we will have a section for questions and answers in which you can ask anything you find relevant for today's discussion, and Babette, Georgi, and I will be happy to answer your questions. A few words on my background. I'm an alumnus of UWC Adriatic. I've been a member of several UWC national committees so far, and I've been collaborating with the UWC movement since graduating from UWC. As for my professional education and experience, after graduating in psychology, I did a PhD in dynamic psychology with a research project on addictions. I then specialized in psychotherapy and group analysis, and I worked at university both as a research assistant and as a psychologist for the counseling service for students. I also work in private practice, so as a school psychologist and as a staff psychologist for several public and private institutions. In August 2016, I joined UWC Dilijan, where I've led the psychological counseling and psychotherapy service for students. And my role here has been to design and implement activities to provide support to students and to prevent distress and promote the well-being of the whole community. I'm sure that some of you have heard that my experience at UWC Dilijan is coming to an end. I'm leaving soon, in fact, and we'll talk about this point later. I'll be happy to give you some details at the end of this town hall. But now let's focus on the topic of this meeting, which I think is interesting and relevant to better understand what happens in an international community and what people, students, but also I guess staff may go through while being here. The topic that we want to discuss is fitting in. Why? Thinking about my experience as a student and then as a psychologist here, I think that fitting in is a challenge. I also think that this is often neglected, or it's not given the right attention. It can be somehow deceiving. And much more than this, there's a lot that we can learn if we reflect on this challenge. What do we mean by fitting in? Fitting in is the idea that we somehow change ourselves, so we modify parts of ourselves in order to be part of a group, or in order to be accepted and included by other people. Now, from a psychological point of view, well, we all want to be accepted and to receive approval, attention, love from other people. This is understandable, and it's something that does not really pertain only to international communities, but I think it is important that we can ask a question, where does this need come from? Where does it stem from? And I think it can be important that we can explore and identify some antecedents that can allow us to understand a bit more about this process. the emotional development of people is a continuous attempt to compromise, to find a balance between our needs and what other people expect from us, and or between our desires and the demands of the external world. Any child goes through this challenge. Any child experiences the fact that the caregivers are not and cannot be always there to respond to the child's needs. Parents have expectations, and this transaction between personal needs and demands is there since the first stages of life, and of course will affect children, people at an implicit and unconscious level. Now, we can use a couple of concepts coming from psychoanalysis that can help us to focus better on the topic that we're talking about. And this is what I want to do with you now, to explore these two concepts and try to understand a bit more. One idea is the concept of the true and false self, developed by a British psychoanalyst, Donald Winnicott. And this is the idea that, let's make a premise, the interaction between children and caregivers leaves signs, and then we are actually the collection of our own experiences. And the ego, according to Freud, is like an onion made of layers, where maybe each layer can represent some of the experiences that we went through. Now, any child has a perception of the way that their parents respond to them. They learn soon what their parents appreciate, what they like, what they dislike. So on one hand, they would express or try to express their needs like hunger or thirst, their emotions, fear, anger. But on the other hand, depending on the interaction with their caregivers and their responses, children would start regulating their needs and their emotional states. So what we call the self is actually a result of this collection of experiences, yeah? And we can apply this to several aspects of life or behaviors, from the simple ones to more complex one. Even the way a child cries is influenced by the interaction with their caregivers. Some children would like shout, some others would sob. And of course, I mean, this can also be applied to some more complex behaviors. So let's give an example. For example, if a child has a younger sibling, they may experience contradicting feelings about them, and they may like playing with them, and they may feel jealous at the same time. They may also learn that their parents would disapprove any aggressive behavior towards them, so they will learn to somehow control it, or they learn to lie a little bit to themselves. And they will modify their behavior. For example, they may sometimes want to kick their sibling, but they will end up caressing them just in order to gain the appreciation of their parents. And from this point of view, the self is always modified by the interaction with others, with significant others, especially. It's our self is like never the result of only our genes, but our experience modifies and shapes our identity. This is what Winnicott would call the false self, because we modify our drives, our preferences in order to be accepted, to be loved, initially by our caregivers, for example, but then also by the other people that we are in relationship with. To some extent, this is what adaptation looks like. Yeah, this is what we all go through, and we can say that on one hand, if we do not receive boundaries, if we do not learn to deal with frustrations, then we may end up developing certain issues, like, for example, a narcissistic attitude. Yeah, this is what we may call in clinical psychologists in clinical psychology, like a narcissistic disorder, for example. On the other hand, we may also adapt too much, and this process can be deceiving, or it can go too far. We may learn that we must be compliant, and maybe we learn to apply this scheme also in other relationships. maybe in a way that brings us to neglect our needs and our emotions. And this is also a risk that we may face during our development. A second concept that we want to talk about is the idea of mimesis, and this can help us to move our focus from childhood to adolescence. I mean, this applies also to children, but actually can shed some light on what happens to when we grow up and become teenagers and adults, and also to what happens in intercultural context, because it is often the case that when we live in a new context, maybe in an international context, and this is certainly the case for adolescents who are still building their identity with other people playing a major role in this process. So it is possible, or well, we can say it's certainly the case, that they may feel strongly influenced by their peers, and they may have the tendency to imitate others, right? Or to do certain things, or to talk in a certain way, or to joke, to have the attention of their friends, and to feel included, to feel appreciated by their peers. So the dynamics of mimesis, of imitation, we can say, is, I imitate you to be you, and to deny the difference between me and you, to deny the distance between me and you, to feel closer to you. So this implies that not only I behave like the other, but the interaction with the others changes my personality and my identity. And this is certainly something unconsciously appealing for adolescents who are still dealing with separations from childhood, or it's a phase in which they start separating from their family to build their adult identity, and in which, of course, their group of peers, their friends, play a very important role. So it is not uncommon, for example, to listen to students say, I've changed a lot here, and sometimes I feel lost. When I'm here, I'm one person, or when I'm home, I feel a different person. If I don't try to be cool, then I feel excluded. And but then if I try to do things that others do, I may feel that I'm betraying myself. And of course, if somebody learned in their past that they must be compliant to feel accepted, then this process can become intense, and it can become a source of stress, anxiety, sadness. There may be situations in which we try to anticipate what others may want from us or appreciate from us, and use this information to modify ourselves and our behavior. We're not talking about anything bizarre. This is like not any major psychological disorder, but it's something that for sure will affect ourselves and our well-being. So if we look more closely about some risks that somehow are present along our emotional development, well, one risk is, of course, the possibility to lose contact with the external reality, which is something scary. This is something that actually happens in some severe disorders, but that's another story. But there's like another risk, which is more subtle, less evident, and this is the risk to lose contact with ourselves, with our internal reality, with our needs and desires. And this would probably would not be like a very evident problem, but can bring people to maybe still function as people, as build relationships, work, study, but maybe they would not feel fully alive. They would not feel fully themselves creative. And I think it is common to see these dynamics in an international community, and of course it is also the case that if we are too much compliant, if we have the tendency to imitate others, then we're also subtracting something to this interaction. We are not bringing our creative and original contribution to the interpersonal interaction with other people. But of course, the good news is that psychology, I think, has a lot to say and to do also in such cases. Now, we focused on this issue, this challenge, and but I would say before looking at ways of dealing with this challenge, it's important that we can listen to our peer listeners, hear from them about their experience. I'm sure that they will bring very meaningful and sensitive examples, and then we can share some more ideas about the topic that we are exploring together. So I would say, Babette and Georgi, over to you.
Hello, my name is Babette van der Dek. I'm from the Netherlands and I'm 17 years old. I was a peer listener from 2022 to 2023 and officially, but I'm still listening to some peers here and there. My initial want to become a peer listener started before I came to Armenia because there were Instagram accounts from the committees from school. So there was, for example, student council or the social committee. And when I saw the peer listener account and what it was about, and I did some research, I thought that is what I want to do. So I already was, very excited to learn more about the role. And I've been interested in humans and behavior and relationships for as long as I can remember. And the idea of helping the community and being there to support 200 teenagers living together sounded like a challenge, but also something very fun and something I thought it would be a skill that I could use all of for the rest of my life, because I think that listening to friends and family is a very valuable and beautiful thing, but that you're not taught how to do it well in school. And so I was really happy to be given the opportunity to get training from Gian Michele. So we had an hour a week of coming together with all peer listeners. So I think there were 14 of us. No, yeah 14. Learning about the mind and how to help teenagers as a teenager yourself. For me personally, when I was asked what were the challenges of fitting in, one very explicit thing came to mind. So when I applied for UWC and I was at UWC, I had this idea of what is a good UWC student. And in my mind, I saw very politically active, engaged, intelligent student who stays up until very late in the common rooms, which is a kind of a living room here at UWC. And I just imagine them talking and debating, and I found myself feeling as if I were not good enough, because that's not how I spent my time, because I like to go to bed early and I'm more into science and behavior economics than politics. So yeah, I had to do with learning how it was okay not to be part of this picture, but that perfect UWC student does not exist, and that it was fine to be the way I was. And yeah, and I learned that taking care of yourself and doing what you think you need is usually a lot better than conforming to the idea you have of what you should be, because in the end it will catch up on you and you will need rest or time for yourself, or things like that. Yeah, and it also fits in with the whole idea of FOMO, which is very apparent at UWC. I think Georgi will talk about it later, a bit more, but it stands for the fear of missing out. And at UWC, you have so many opportunities to go to extracurricular activities and talk to people and start your own projects, that it can feel as if you're missing out. A very good example I have is when I was lying in bed and I thought, I'm going to catch an early night and do something good for myself. But then I heard in the corner in the hall, you hear people laughing. So it's very difficult to know where to draw the line between engaging in fun activities and learning. Like it's hard to learn about your personal boundaries when there's something so attractive so close to you. But like I said, it's important to listen to what you need. And this is also what I've noticed when talking to my fellow peers during peer listening sessions, that there was the idea of having to be something, or have to be a certain someone, or having to do a certain thing to fit in or to make the most out of your experience here. And yeah, it often contrasted with the reality, which is listening to yourself is often the best. Um, yeah, that was what I had to tell. Thank you very much for listening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Georgi, and I'm from Georgia, and I'm also a peer listener from 2022 to 2023. The reason that I wanted to become a peer listener was that when I first arrived at UW Stilligen, I felt very much sort of need to fit into the community, like stick to other people, like what other people were doing. But I was also very confused of what to do and how to fit in and everything. So I approached my fellow peer listeners here, like who have already left because they were second years, and I talked to them. I talked to them about peer listening. Like they listened to me, they helped me to adapt to this environment. I also talked to school psychologist Gian Michele, and thank you so much for your support. And then after a few talks with my friends, peer listeners, I also decided to apply because they helped me so much in the first few months that I wanted to give back to the community. And also the idea of helping so many students it seemed very fun and very like rewarding. Yeah, thank you. But I actually didn't really realize the challenges that would raise later on, because it's a very challenging experience, but indeed it's very rewarding to like see that you have helped somebody and somebody feels much better after talking to you, and you feel the trust of those people. That's an amazing experience. And I mentioned FOMO before, fear of missing out. And I'm completely opposite to Babette when it comes to sleep, because I'd rather stay up till 3 or 4 a.m. in common room talking with different people, because yes, I sort of got...
You are the politically involved universities.
Not politically, but like I've stayed in common rooms talking about, I don't know, very different things, starting from politics, I think with science and whatever with my peers, talking about our backgrounds and like the way we were brought up back home and how we have to change here as well. And to be honest, I really got dragged into this FOMO, because sometimes when I try to go to bed early because I have an important test or something coming up, I still find it hard to fall asleep because I'm still scared that I'm missing out on a lot of things, which not necessarily I might not be missing out on anything. It's just that how much I got dragged into this. And to be honest, sometimes it's like I find it hard, but I also sometimes manage to detach myself from FOMO and actually go to bed and take my own time, which is totally fine. But sometimes it's also very hard to realize that it's totally fine to take your own time and do whatever you actually enjoy rather than to do it to fit in. But on the other hand, it's also important to fit in the community that you are in the sense of like respect other people's boundaries, respect other people's views, and be respectful to what they think and what they believe in, to not get dragged into very like this aggressive talks and conversation technically never happened, but like it can be very easy to sort of when not agreeing with somebody's opinion, it can be very easy for you to become a bit more uh, passionate. Yeah, like passionate about your views and start defending them very strongly, which sometimes is kind of hard to control. So like it's very important to find that fine line to respect others and also stay within your own boundaries and do not cross your own boundaries. Um, so yeah, technically that's what I wanted to say.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to talk about very quickly about how to recognize FOMO. So what I've noticed when talking to other students and thinking myself about FOMO is that reflecting on my behavior and reflecting on how I feel when I give in or stay out of FOMO really helps me identify where does the need come from to act against what I actually feel like is the best for me or for my peers. Yeah, and that just reflecting on your own behavior can really help, because giving into FOMO once in a while is okay and can lead to very fun conversations and experiences. And going out of your comfort zone is a part of UWC, but you also have to prioritize your well-being. So like Georgi said, it's all a very fine line.
But also it's very important to find the line between your, like, when you're out of your comfort zone and when you're in your danger zone, because if you too much go out of your comfort zone too much, that can actually lead to not so many good consequences. So it's also important to stay between those, like,
the optimal ranges of
optimal range. Yep.
We learned this from a global issue from John Michele, by the way. So thank you, John Michele.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you for your beautiful contributions. It's always nice to listen to you and see how much you've been reflecting on your experience here. Now, it is true that living in an international community can be challenging, as also Babette and Georgi said. It is true that along the journey of our emotional development, we can develop a false self, or we can learn to maybe sometimes lie to ourselves. We can learn to be compliant, sometimes too much. But first, as we said, this process is to some extent adaptive. And secondly, we all go through ups and downs. We all have difficulties in life. And I think that here it's where psychology and psychological support can play an essential role. We talked about a lot with the peer listeners about the importance of processing our experiences, and we said many times that our possibility to process our emotions, to work through them, or to mentalize is one of the major antecedents of mental well-being. And this is why having reflective spaces also in a school is fundamental, because we can learn about ourselves, we can learn about our emotions, we can learn to identify our needs, or learn how much other people can influence us, or think about FOMO or our interaction with other people, and or that, for example, certain things that we do not really belong to ourselves, that we sometimes follow models that are not in line with our personality, our needs, and our preferences. And what we said shows how much, in a community, reflective spaces can be important. And what I mean by this, I'm referring to counseling or psychotherapy, or having a program on social and emotional learning, or raising awareness in a community about the challenges that we're talking about, promoting dialogue, having spaces and forums in which we can talk openly and reflect together. Therefore, fitting in is a challenge, but I think it's also something from which we can learn a lot. And that's why I think it's important to give a name to this challenge, so that we are aware of it, and we are ready to observe ourselves and learn from our interaction with others and our interaction with ourselves. I would like to conclude my presentation with the words of Henry David Thoreau, a philosopher. He wrote a beautiful book called Walden, and where he talks, according to me, also about our relationship with others and to what extent they influence our identity. And this is a passage that is that you can find in Walden, and in my understanding, it's Thoreau talking about himself, maybe also talking to himself. And he says, if a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. Well, now we have some time for questions and answers. I see that some questions are arriving already. There's one question that is, well, I think this could be for you, Babette and Georgi. It's like fitting in and celebration of diversity. Yeah, we talked a lot about fitting in, but of course also diversity is like one of the important aspects of the ethos of UWC. And a person asks, what is more important for a UWC school? Do you want to answer that? I think that, you know, what you said is like very much relating to this topic.
So your question is, what is more important, diverse, like being diverse or fitting in?
Yes. It's a question coming from one attendees.
I think being diverse is more important than fitting in, because if everyone was trying to fit in, you wouldn't have authentic people. And I think the fact one of UWC's core ideas is that diversification is a beautiful thing, and living with your peers and studying with your peers allows you to learn more about the unknown. And also, the idea of fitting in is usually different, even though it's the same feeling that people experience of longing and wanting to be a part of something. I think that people's idea of what they have to do to fit in differs, and it also differs on what kind of person you're trying to emulate, what kind of group you would like to fit into. So I think that diversity is more important than fitting in, but this has to be done in a respectful manner, in my opinion. So even though it is okay to have different views, to have different opinions, I think everyone should be treated with respect, and the conversations should be tried to be kept kind and understanding, because if you start screaming or you start becoming too kind of obsessed with making sure everyone has the same opinion, then one of the core values of UWC is lost. And I think that the point of understanding is usually met in a moment of peace and a moment of just kindness is needed.
I completely agree with Babette. I just wanted to add the part that diversity is more important than fitting in, due to also the fact that we come here to learn and listen and hear all of those different perspectives and opinions from people all around the world. And if everybody just decides to follow that one standard of fitting in, and they will be scared to express their own feelings, emotions, their views, worldviews, and whatever, like the whole idea of UWC is lost. As Babette already mentioned this before, but like I think the diversity plays a huge, like diversity is what drives UWC, and it should be about respect rather than just saying what and agreeing what others think of, let's say.
Yeah, I think it's you're making like very good points. I think to some extent we all want to fit in and adapt, because, you know, if we feel too different, we may also feel lonely. But then we are here to express our diversity, to enjoy it, and to learn from the fact that we're different from each other. We're bringing our own experience and also our own cultures. So I would agree that the UWC experience is actually creating a space where different people can meet, interact, and learn from their diversity, not from becoming homogeneous, right? There's a second question, and this is actually for the two of you. How forthcoming are students in sharing their feelings with peer listeners? and of course you may answer this question.
So at first, when a lot of people would approach me, I had that kind of a fear, but it was kind of shocking to see that how many people actually came up to me and talked to me about their emotions, how they felt, and what they were experiencing. And to be honest, even though it is a challenge to listen to so many people about their emotions, struggles, and what they're going through, it feels nice that you feel trusted in the community, and then those people trust you and can approach you anytime. And I mean, to be honest, there are lots of people are very open about approaching peer listeners, because I've talked to my peer listeners about this topic as well, and they've told me that lots of people are also approaching them. We are all obviously not sharing any of the names or whatever due to the confidentiality that we have to follow. But students are quite open with their emotions and feelings, at least to the experience that I've had here as a peer listener.
I've also learned that people do not always come forward when they need help, because it can be quite a scary thing to ask someone, especially if you don't know them that well, for guidance. So what I have gained from this experience is I had weekly meetings with my June parent and my fellow peer listener. And a June parent is kind of a, yeah, it is what it sounds like. It's the parent of a house, and house is made out of 2 quarters. And together we talked about if we had someone to keep an eye on, or someone we noticed acting a bit different. And this taught me how, if people cannot ask for help themselves, how to spot if someone needs someone to talk to. But I agree with Georgi, there's enough people also coming towards you, because I think one of the things about UWC is that it's a very open community, and that mental health is discussed very openly. But I'm also very grateful that I learned how to notice other people and to be extra aware of how to be a good friend or a good listener.
And also, can I add something about mental
Of
health part?
course.
Because it was coming from Georgia, we don't really have that much of a mental health and education back home. And coming here, it was quite shocking in a positive way how the school approached and actually cared about mental health and the support systems that we have in place. So it was one of the first shocks that I experienced here in terms of that, because I mean, having a school psychologist, also additionally having peer listeners as a student support system is kind of amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, also many students who come and speak to me, they would say that, you know, they felt supported by the peer listeners, and the idea of having a group of peer listeners is actually to facilitate also a dialogue between students, and having some of you being able and available to provide listening and support. We know also from research and practice how much when people are struggling with something, they would approach actually the people they're closer to, so their friends or the people around them. So that's why I think it's a very valuable experience to have you and a group of you that are motivated to help other students. We have a third question, and this is again for the two of you. So that's nice. Somebody's asking, what is the biggest psychological problem that students have in Babette's and Georgi's experience?
I go first?
Please.
That's a difficult one, because I feel like teenagers go through go through a lot of things. I think that one of the most universal problems I've listened to or heard is the idea of not having enough time to do what you want in a day, and to not reach your potential here. So I've had a lot of discussions about academics, for example, and how it's difficult to get good grades, the comparison between classmates, maybe parents, what they think of your grades. That can be very difficult, or um, yeah, how to balance it with growing up and living in an international community. I think it's hard to really mention one specific thing because teenagers' lives are so intertwined with every part. They, yeah, with every part of the life they live. It's hard to just separate them, but I think it's just the combination of the factors of social life and making friends here and having meaningful conversations about um, uh, doing your schoolwork in a way that you feel satisfied with your results, and to do new things and to experience what you're expecting to get out of UWC. I hope this answers the question because I find it quite difficult to answer. So.
Personally, I think the biggest concern and the reason that most people approach me has been, first of all, academics, because IB is a very challenging academic program, very rigorous, and like people have been having problems to manage their time appropriately, as Babette mentioned, not being able to do whatever they want in a day, and like let's say having a lot of deadlines has been struggle for all of us at some point, but some people are taking it differently, and I have had lots of students approaching me about that. And another thing, I mean, obviously we are all teenagers living in one place, so there has been lots of people approaching me with regards with like friendships and relationships, which I mean has been tough for everybody. And it's, I would say, mainly academics and like friendship relationship, not advice necessarily, but struggles that they are facing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if in your experience also as peer listeners, for example, there are additional challenges for students here that are, you know, the cultural shock, being far from home, not sometimes not having a private space, also because you share a room, and that's the idea of WC, that you may spend time with each other, but I guess this can also somehow like make life a bit challenging, right?
To be honest, that issues of like missing, like homesicknesses, also lack of privacy, and this kind of issues has been mainly around in first 2 months. Personally, for the people has been approaching me to try to adapt to this new environment, because personally, for in first 2 months of my UW Diligent experience, having not no privacy, but having a little privacy
Yeah.
has been very tough for me. And after that, I sort of get used to that, and I found the way of co-living with my roommates. But at first, it's very hard, and like it's mainly first 2 months when people are approaching about like privacy problems, that they are lacking privacy, that they are having trouble connecting back to their families. And also, one thing that I want to add, which I've noticed, is that how much we change here, like the rate of change is so high, and then we go back home for holidays, and it's also hard to fit in back home. And I've had lots of students approaching me about that after holidays, let's say.
I want to
Okay.
quickly touch on the privacy thing, but yeah, that's also a thing here because boundaries are very difficult. There's, first of all, the boundaries with your roommates. It can be little things like when you turn off the lights, to big things like who can go into the room, or yeah, there's just a lot of small things that you don't think about that much when you haven't lived together with other people, or the things like sharing a bathroom with 20 other people can be a bit overwhelming at first, but yeah, you get used to it. And usually, I think that's also what costs so much energy, especially for first years in the first month or so, or a bit over that, is that everything is different. And that can be the academic system to the supermarket. And that all those changes, big and small, make it a challenge to learn how to fit in and to yeah, be part of the community. But with time, you learn to love it, or most people, I feel like, learn to love it, and you really
Yeah.
become appreciative. And I think it's also good to learn how to, how to not per se fit in, but how to find your own way in a community like this, because it gives you personality and character and strength.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you were saying something else? Okay, thank you very much. We're approaching the end of this town hall. Thank you to all of you for being with us. And of course, special thanks to Babette and Georgi for your contribution. It's really nice to listen to your thoughts. As I was mentioning at the start, these are my last few days at UWC Dilijan, and I'm leaving because in March I'm starting a new job. I'm going to work for the National Health Service in Rome, and in the meantime, here in the school, Hazmi Karutunian, the visiting psychologist, will be available for the students. We're asking her to be more available, and we're also in the process of recruiting a well-being counselor who may come to Dilijan as soon as possible. Now, many people are asking me how I feel, and I have mixed feelings. I'm happy to start a new adventure, but it's really sad to leave Dilijan. This has been like a very beautiful adventure for me, and it's sad, difficult, and seeing also the affection that many people, students and colleagues are showing, it's making it like much more difficult. So
this is a perfect segue, Gian Michele. Gian Michele has been taking a lot of camera time with all these virtual events we've been doing. And since this is his last online engagement, we decided that it would be right for us to connect to acknowledge his contribution. We will have an in-campus celebration before he leaves, but we wanted to be able to celebrate him, especially for those of you who are connected online who haven't had the pleasure of being here. Gian Michele's work is obviously confidential, but I know how much value he is by students and parents who have had to deal with him in different ways. And we wanted to say thank you. So I'm delighted that we're joined here today by Veronica Sonnabend, our founder and chair of the board, and by Philip Cousens, the chair of the education committee. So Veronica, over to you.
Oops. Yeah, that is Gian Michele. Yes, now you hear me. Yeah. It's so sorry I can't be in Dilijan and say these words to you in person. So it's one of the occasions when you have when somebody has mixed feelings. So on one hand, we should greet you with the new step in your career. At the same time, I can hardly imagine Dilijan without you, because you are the person who was almost here in Dilijan almost from the inception, and you are the face, one of the faces that are very much part of Dilijan identity. So again, all the words were told there, I joined them, and I want to say that Dilijan is a special place. So people can't leave it forever. So I'm sure that after some time you will be back, and we are happy to have you back. I don't know in which capacity, but to be part of this ecosystem, and then also either of the school or maybe wider community. But I want to express my gratitude to everything you've done, and that you did it not like a job. It was a mission for you, and we all, and all the students and also all the staff felt it. So that is it will be hard to find somebody who can substitute you. So let's stay in touch, and I hope life will again connect us. And and for you, all success in this challenging time. and you know that their profession of you is more in demand than before. So, and we in the will be happy to see you anytime when you come. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you for this beautiful surprise. That
So can I invite Philip?
Thank you, Gabriel. I noticed that Babette and Georgie had previously just asked a question about whether they could just say a few words. So I'm going to let them just steal a few seconds first before I say anything. Babette and Georgie.
We just wanted to say an extra thank you to John Michele for all the beautiful sessions we've had about peer listening and how much we've learned and the enjoyable times. And a thank you from us to you. It has been a pleasure, and we're really going to miss you.
Once again, thank you so much on behalf of the peer listeners and the student body. We will really miss you. And I don't know, it seems unbelievable that next week you will be leaving this community, which we value a lot. So thanks a lot for your support, and thanks for always being there for us to help and listen and train us as well.
And I feel like we speak for the entire student
Yes,
body.
we are speaking on behalf of the whole student body.
Much love to you. Thank you.
John Michele, it's unusual for board members to be given an opportunity like this to say thank you and to say a few words. Since I was asked to do that, I've been trying to think of a metaphor to represent the very special things which you've done over the years at Diligent. And I've come to realise that actually the work is far too significant for that. I thought first of all about an iceberg, rock steady, 1/10 above the surface and 9/10 below, and that represents well, I think, your silent and confidential efforts, often out of sight, but totally dependable. But the coldness and the impenetrability are the opposite of how you operate. That's always with warmth and with concern. Your support is certainly something that people want to embrace rather than to avoid. So the iceberg is perhaps not a good metaphor. During the pandemic, I think that the whole world was a bit like a duck paddling water, trying to look calm on the surface whilst working desperately below just to keep afloat and to try to move forward. The effects of the confinement and the increase in stress levels led to an almost exponential need for you to support people in various ways, and indeed the community, and to lead all the student wellbeing teams. We can't imagine, John Michele, anything other than calm, I think, but there's no doubt that there must have been quite a lot of paddling going on beneath the surface at those times. I'm talking there about COVID. I'm talking about the conflicts and indeed war, and also in a decade when there have been very fundamental changes, attitude, sexuality, and diversity, and identity. It's been changing times, and your role has always been guiding the college, but also during these difficult times, you were guiding other UWCs and schools more generally. I know, but a duck is not a good metaphor. Water just rolls off a duck's back, and that's not the way you are at all. Your skillful handling of mental health issues and the like. So I next thought of dolphins coaching each other along their complicated routes, usually just below the surface, gracefully emerging at regular intervals for breath, to take breath, and for all to admire. Dolphins known for their intelligence, they're remarkable communicators, and their hearing, their listening is super sensitive. The echoes, the click sounds that they make allow them to assess the lie of the land with great accuracy. and that's without often the need for extensive dialogue. And of course, dolphins, there are lots of accounts of their kindness to human beings. So dolphins perhaps are a much better metaphor for you, Jean-Michel. But I apologize, this is sounding a bit too much like a rather childish review of a man who's known to be profound, working in a very serious field. You're an intellectual, you're a warm human being. Doctor twice over, Dr. Michele Giovanni Acquali, you're extremely well qualified as a psychologist and a physiotherapist with a long list of research and writings to your name. You're quietly spoken and a very considered communicator whose wisdom has always been available but never imposed on people. I speak today, I know particularly, not just myself, but on behalf of John and Elizabeth and Pierre, who have had a lot to do with you over the years, and also everyone else on the board. We wish to express our gratitude for all that you've done and achieved during your very long term of service at the college and the legacy that you leave. You've ably steered and consolidated the wellbeing teams, and you cared for many generations. You've willingly engaged always with us as board members, and we've invariably enjoyed our interactions with you. And we've always benefited, and our understanding has got better, both of individuals and communities and the community. But your real achievement is that you've given to many hundreds of students who have had access to your wise and indeed professional counselling and therapy. And it's quite often at times when young people have faced their most difficult moments. The community has been very fortunate indeed to have had you quietly and unobtrusively nudging everyone in directions that for individuals and for the community as a whole have been the right way. We wish to express our immense gratitude, and we wish you well, both personally and professionally, as you move. And I think you're a very lucky man moving from the beautiful city of Rome and going back to your home country. It's not for me to say, but I think that there's no doubt that there will be part of your heart that will remain in Dilijan and in Armenia. And we're particularly pleased that you've offered to keep in touch with us and to continue to offer your wisdom to us whenever it's needed. Thank you.
I think I'm without words for this surprise. I'm grateful to Veronica, to you, Philip, to Gabrielle also for intervening at the end of this town hall. It's, as I said, like being in Dilijan for almost 7 years has been a beautiful experience, and I am grateful to the school, to the board, to the leadership, to my colleagues, and I would say above all to the students, because it has been like a privilege for me to work in this special place, to feel that I have the trust of so many people, and I think this is the most beautiful gift that I could receive. All this affection is making it like even harder to leave. It was already very, very hard, but I mean, I'm grateful and thankful for having had the opportunity to be here. And I mean, you know, as in Italian we say arrivederci, which means, you know, see you. I don't want to say goodbye. I want to say, look, I mean, maybe we separate, but keeping in touch, and also with the idea to meet soon and to maybe work on other projects together in the future. Who knows? But I'm really happy to be in touch with all of you. It's actually a pleasure. I see this as a gift that we can actually keep in touch. So thank you very much. Thank you. So thank you very much to, all of you for being with us. And again, thanks to Babette and Georgi for your beautiful contribution. Thank you to the advancement team. Thank you to Veronica, Philip, and Gabrielle for this beautiful surprise. And I think that we can end this town hall here. It's sad that this is like the last town hall, but it's more sad that this is like the last few days in Dilijan. But I'm sure that there will be like much more interaction coming up. I'll be happy to come back and to keep in touch with this special and beautiful community. So thanks again, and then see you soon.
I'm gonna jump in here, Gianmichele.
Oh, yeah.
Some of you will know that in Italian, you can say ciao to say hello and also to say goodbye. So this is a ciao. And actually, when as a UWC alum, you'll recognize this. Lots of people talk about the Eagle Zone, Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. So we're going to hold you to that. You can never leave. Thank you very much. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Georgi. Again. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Arrivederci.
Thank you. Arrivederci. Bye-bye.